proud of them lately, but maybe not after last night. Those Toronto Maple Leafs, it was an interesting one. We had a 5-1 lead at about the halfway point of the second period. And the Toronto Maple Leafs did Toronto Maple Leafs things, and ultimately we blew that game, lost it by a score of 7-6 in overtime. There was a lot of storylines that came out of this game. Of course, it was the Leafs on the second half of a back-to-back after beating the Tampa Bay Lightning the night before. Also, our goaltender got injured mid-game. Eric Shalgren was the starter in that one. He got injured. Jack Campbell had to come in relief. And ultimately, of course, the end storyline is we blew a 5-1 lead and lost the game. So I want to ask you guys the question, is this loss worth freaking out about? We've been so good lately. We got a 3 of a possible 4 points in Florida. And as well, we got 11 of a possible 12 points in our last 6 games. So I want to ask, are you nervous? Does the way we kind of played nervous when Florida started putting on pressure make you more nervous about the Leafs heading into the playoffs? Or do we believe that people are overreacting about this one? It's not worth stressing about. We're doing very well. I'm going to start by asking my roommate over there, Evan Davis, what's your analysis after this game? And do you think we're blowing the loss out of proportion?
I don't know. It didn't seem like a lot of people were like that aggravated. I mean, it was a tough game, given the fact that Florida is the number 1 offensive team and Toronto was number 2. So you were going to expect a high scoring game. I took the over 7 in that. Thank you very much. Sprinkled Panthers money line, which costed me at first a little, but we ended up pulling through. But overall, I mean, I'm actually more fearful now for Florida. Their defense last night was absolutely atrocious. And I'll say that game was definitely a combination of Bobrovsky not making saves that he should have been making. And then goals that were almost, I hate to say Leaf-esque, where the defense just completely leaves out Bobrovsky to dry. I would definitely say that it is a bit concerning given the fact that the Leafs have had blown these leads throughout the season. They've just found ways to recoup from them, still pull away with the victory. Unfortunately, this one was against Florida, who I just said has scored the most goals in the NHL and is on pace to smash that record by 20-something goals. So, I wouldn't say it's a bad loss for the Leafs. I know I was giving you guys shit yesterday, but it was kind of just ironic that it's the one team that this happens to be the Florida Panthers, but I would be pushing the panic button a little bit on both sides, just given the fact of what happened in that game. And yeah, I'll end it on that.
Oh yeah, and I think definitely well said. It was a frustrating game. I think it was more of a game where instant reaction right after it ended is, I can't believe we lost it. I can't believe we blew this game. I was on FaceTime during when the Panthers scored their 6th goal to take the lead. I smacked my hands down on my desk and Jory's like, what's wrong? And I just didn't talk for a second. So she figured, she's like, good. And I'm like, no.
No bueno.
And I kind of shook my head there. So she kind of figured what was going on there. It was a frustrating one, but after sitting with it a little bit, I don't like giving excuses, but ultimately it's the best scoring team in the NHL. We're on the second half of a back-to-back. Our goalie got injured mid-game. A lot didn't go our way. The fact that we were able to come away with a point, get a 3 of a possible 4 against Tampa and Florida, 2 amazing teams, it's hard to be too mad. The one thing, though, that really, not that it got me stressing, but it a little bit alerted the panic button is the fact that it was so clear in our game and in our body language, especially I noticed it with Mitch Marner, who he was unbelievable last night. He got 2 goals and 2 assists. But when Florida started coming back, he looked like how he looked back in the Montreal series. Scared, panicking. He looked like his stick was heavy. He wasn't playing loose anymore after they started coming back into the game. And that's kind of concerning for a player that has a lot to prove under pressure. And the fact that he wasn't really able, I can't say he didn't show up because he had 4 points. But but the fact that just in his body language, he very much looked nervous when Florida started coming back into the game. I don't know. I found it a little bit, I'm not saying hit the panic button with him. He's unbelievable, having a great year. I'm very curious to see how he does this playoffs, because that's an example of a team putting on pressure, and he wasn't really able to respond late in the game. Anyways, I'll continue by asking Adamo, what was your analysis in the game? I know you haven't been able to watch the Leafs too much lately, but a good reintroduction to, I guess, what you've been missing in the past little bit.
Yeah, I was going to say, this podcast is going to be a lot of you guys catching me up, because, the last, I didn't catch a second of the Winnipeg one, the Boston game, the Philly game. I got to see the last 2, which were pretty good, honestly.
Played really good lately.
And I was actually going to go the opposite way on Mitch Marner, which is rare, but he's shutting me up. But at the same time, I'm 100% on Jared's side. Oh, pressure hits a Mitch Marner, and you all know the rest. Yeah. You all know the rest. It's the same song and dance with him. So I guess you really can't make any judgments until the playoffs. And I know we've been saying it all year, but the playoffs are rearing its ugly head around the corner. And I say ugly because we're Leaf fans, but they're supposed to be fun. But for us, they never really are. Man, are we going to talk about Matthews later? Is that's planned later?
Yeah,
right?
we're going to talk.
Okay, yeah. So
we're gonna be stroking his cock.
Yeah,
for
He's unbelievable. Best Leaf of all time. I'll say it right now. Like, he's best Leaf of all time.
Yeah. We'll get into it.
Okay,
we're gonna be stroking him.
Yeah, because he's ridiculously good. But I thought the Leafs played fine. Honestly, I thought like even last night, like I don't think it was a case of the Leafs choking last night. I think it was a case of the Florida Panthers coming back. I know that kind of sounds like you guys remember that Westbrook quote? Have you guys heard that Russell Westbrook when he said, "Bro, what are you talking about, man?"
Oh yeah.
The question that was asked beforehand was, "Did the Lakers beat you, or did you guys lose to the Lakers?"
Yeah.
And that's what he said. Bro, you talk. But that's what it felt like. It felt like the Panthers beat us, and not really we lost to the Panthers.
I get what you mean.
You know, it didn't feel like they were choking. It just felt like the Panthers like turned it up a notch. Campbell came in cold, which is always a hard spot to be after a fantastic game against Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
So
definitely,
I wouldn't hit the fan button.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think it is fair to say, as much as the score makes it look, I think, a lot worse than the game actually was. Because, I mean, people who weren't watching the game all over the NHL were like, oh shit, the Leafs have a 5-1 lead and they blew it. Everyone make memes about them and laugh about them.
I have a story about that after,
The fact that we got onto a 5-1 lead, it came off of 3 goals in 3 minutes. It's not like we were dominating them for the entire start. It was a pretty relatively even game, I'd say. We got at the start of the second period, I mean, a goal 30 seconds into the period, a goal a minute into the period, and a goal 2 minutes into the period.
Yeah.
Okay, can I tell a quick story about that?
Yeah.
Last night. Okay, so it's like intermission, and my mom goes, "Oh shit, kids, like we don't have bread or something like to make my brother and sister for lunch." And so he's like, "Damo, go to the grocery store, get us some bread, get us some whatever." And so I go, and it's still intermission when I leave. I walk into the Longos, and for some reason, like they have a TV there because I guess there's a little cafe because it's one of those with the Starbucks in it, and there's a cafe with the TV on it, and it's like I walk in and it's like just starting, like opening face-offs was happening. So I look, I watch for about 10 seconds, whatever, and I go do my thing. Head down, I grab 2 loaves of bread, check out, walk out, and I'm just driving home because I didn't put the Leaf game on because honestly, whatever. It's a 30-second drive. It's literally down the street from me. That's how close it was. And I pull in, do my thing. I walk in through the front door, and my mom's like, "Oh, sorry." I'm like, "Huh? What?" And then my dad's like, "What the fuck happened?" Or I don't know what he said. It's like the 16th minute mark, and we're up 4-1. What?
Yeah, it was in 2 seconds we got up to the lead. So the score makes it look a lot worse than it actually was. It was very much frustrating from a watching perspective, but actually, and I think Leafs fans have been surprisingly good about this one because I haven't seen a lot of freaking out on Twitter. I think it's more on Twitter people being like, nobody freak out, but kind of everyone's shouting the same thing at each other because I haven't really seen that many Leafs fans actually freaking out about this one, aside from a little bit of panic button things, which is just something I noticed that the team didn't look the same as the Panthers started crawling back, highlighted by Mitch Marner, who I think he's the most noticeable because he had the best game at the start of the game. So it was so noticeable how his body language kind of changed when
he was so aggressive, like even on that goal.
He was unbelievable at the beginning, and then I don't know, it reminded me of watching him in the Montreal series where holding his stick, whereas usually it's loosey-goosey, he's dangling through everyone. He looked like his stick was stiff, and he was falling over at times and stuff like that. I love Mitch Marner. He's been one of the best Leafs in this recent little stretch of games, but it's just something to keep an eye on, especially heading into the playoffs now 12 games away. How is he going to do? And lastly, I'll close it off by talking to Mario. What were your thoughts on this game? What's your analysis? And do you think we're blowing losses out of proportion, or do you think we're kind of fair in saying it's not worth panicking after this one? Second half of a back-to-back, coming off of a 5-game winning streak.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to use excuses or anything like that because they're obviously with this Leafs team. We learned last year that the excuses do nothing and they mean nothing. You guys all know this. What's the one thing that doesn't happen in a playoff series, no matter which team is playing, no matter how many demons they have? What's one thing in any playoff series that doesn't happen? I've seen it in the first round. There's a lot of high-scoring games.
I meant like 7. You're not seeing many. Like
I've seen some Tampa, Florida tangos. It's happened.
I don't
penalties.
Know. You don't know what? No. Okay, Jared.
Is it the penalty numbers? Because there was a ridiculous amount of penalties in this.
Yes, that is correct, but it's not the direction I'm going. The one thing that doesn't happen in playoffs, and we all know this, there is never a back-to-back situation. You never have to run through Florida on a back-to-back situation and face Tampa, who's a massive team that can do just about whatever they want and go and shut them up and come back and play Florida. That's never going to have to happen in a playoff series. So when we have to look at what the Leafs are going to do from this game and how it reflects into a playoff record, let's just know this is a regular season game. I think it was game 70 of 82. So let's put that one to bed. Number 2, the 5-1 lead jokes are not funny when it's against the best offensive team in the league. I don't like it. I didn't laugh. I like to laugh about things. I laughed about a Damo's bread joke, and I cannot laugh about this. It is 5-1, and you are playing into Florida's strengths. This is what they love to do. Evan, you mentioned it. I will mention it now. The group chat has been scratched off the bingo card. You mentioned it about the Florida's ability, and this is like sort of their game style, where it's not always 5-1, but it's 3-1, 4-1, something around that realm where they're trailing by a bit. Switch turns on, and they're humming on all cylinders, and they come back and win it, and they demolish you too and beat you with your own fists. They didn't beat the Leafs with their own fists, but they definitely beat them in just about everything in that second half. So I think I credit this more to a big Florida win than a bad Maple Leafs loss. And I think that's the sort of storyline we're following on this podcast. Definitely not the case in the social media world. Leaf fans turning on Leaf fans, which is typical in the month of April and May. But no, man, I'm cool and composed. Leafs had a lot of things go against them, including a back-to-back situation they were in. Goalie gets hurt, and I have no clue. This is probably the hardest thing in sport. How does a cold goalie come in and make a save immediately off of lasers or something like that? It's astonishing what these goalies can do, what kind of athletes they are. And give credit to Jack Campbell. He stood in there. I didn't see a lot of bad goals his part, but a lot of bad goals. And I was watching Steve Dangle today. Very rarely I watch him, but I watched his video. I'll give him credit here. He was talking a lot about the Maple Leafs defensive ability in front of their net. And this is obviously a known theme in Leafland. It's something that cannot stand. And I'm sure, Jerry, we're going to talk about this next, but look at the defensemen that were on the ice and the defensemen that were not on the ice. And one of them was Iliya Labushka. And he's the guy who is always known, and I've seen it a lot this year, watching him specifically, is that he's a guy who loves to box guys out physically and is just a huge physical presence on that blue line. Well, we didn't get to see him last night because Keefe decided to switch up the lines and give him the night off, I guess. But you really saw it being a lot noticeable in front of the net, where all the goals in that comeback, except for, I believe, the OT winner, was a poor defensive effort in front of the net. And I think that is something the Leafs have to, I'm not gonna say have to learn, because they've had a lot of instances where they have to learn this, but something they have to know. They have understood that Florida is a team that can do this kind of stuff and score on you in an instant and flip the entire scoreboard their way. Now you know. You've played them, and that was something they haven't done all season long. Now you know. And now you should be not fearful, but in mind that this team has the ability to do that if you take your foot off the gas. And the Leafs have been all gas, no brakes for the last 5 or 6 games. So definitely a big learning experience for Toronto. But hey, man, we're going to talk about the 5-game, the trip they've had, or that 5-game stretch. I can't complain. This is some of the best Leafs hockey we've seen all year, if you want to even go back to that month of November, because you're seeing it against real tough opponents. And that first half of the game, I've learned just how bad tweets can actually be. And in my case, messages in our group chat, they don't age well whatsoever.
Never.
But Jared, man, take it away. That is my 10 cents on this Maple Leafs team and that loss.
Yeah, absolutely.
No.
He cut out.
Jared.
Yo, Jared.
Oh, he can't hear us.
He can't even hear us.
Can't hear.
This is fun. This is fun. Can he see us? Oh, no.
It might be his adapter, because if his headphones aren't working either.
That was hilarious. He kept
just
going. No, you're still on here, buddy.
Hello.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. You kept going. Stay on that bone. I love it.
Oh, well, I this kind of muted. I've been looking at sort of some data, but in general, yeah, what I wanted to say is
that was so funny.
Completely agree with your point about the defense, and we're going to get to the defense in a second. But before, even though this is very much a Leafs-focused podcast, I just want to say, and I've been saying it for all season long, I don't have confidence whatsoever in the style the Florida Panthers play. Like, I'd be shocked if this strategy works in the playoffs. Obviously, I could be proven wrong because they're by far the best scoring team in the NHL right now. So they can find a way, but I just don't see it right now. They aren't playing a trustworthy playoff style hockey whatsoever. And I just wanted to say that. I mean, the way Florida Panthers fans are kind of freaking out after, oh my God, we just beat the Leafs, whatever. Like, we're dominating teams. Good luck with this strategy in the playoffs, because if you find yourself down 5-1 halfway through a game in a playoff series, very rarely, I'm not going to say never, because we're Leafs fans and we've seen the craziest comebacks in the playoffs, but very rarely are you going to see a team able to come back from that. And the Panthers are doing it very well in the regular season. I don't see a way they do it in the playoffs. But anyways, moving on, of course, you mentioned the fact that in this game, Jake Muzzin was lifted off of LTIR. And the player that ended up being scratched, it could have been Justin Hall, but instead Sheldon Keefe decided to scratch Iliya Labushka. And I want to ask you guys your opinion with Muzzin back. What would your ideal defensive lineup be? Of course, they ended up putting Muzzin and Hall back together, and that was on the ice for a lot of goals against. It did not play very well whatsoever, and I could have told you that before the game. That is not a good defensive pairing. So I want to ask you guys, what is a good defensive pairing, and what would you like to see the Leafs put together going into the playoffs? We'll start with a Damo. Just what's your idea? What do you think would be good for the playoffs?
Shit. Okay, you're making me scroll up here because I'm pretty sure I sent them to you guys. I don't have them on top of my head, so I'm kind of filling in some space here. If anyone else wants to go, that'd be awesome.
I'll do a quick scroll. Oh yeah, Mario. If you want to jump in, go right ahead.
Mine's very simple, and I mean, maybe some of the veteran Leafs won't like it, but this is what I got, and it's been working in the past. We saw through this game stretch where the Leafs have been playing some great defensive hockey lately, aside from that Florida game where everything was in a blender. But I have Riley and Labushka, and they're staying up there. I love the physical presence that allows Riley to be what he is. He's a part-time defender. Let's not go around here. He is not there for his defense strictly. He's an offensive defenseman, and I love to see it happen. Labushka, not to say he's a huge defensive defenseman, but he's not going to score you any goals or get you any points. He's going to be a physical presence. He's going to make your life a living hell in the defensive zone. So give me those two at the top of the pairing. I think they can work wonders. And the second pairing, I got Liljegren and Jake Muzzin. I think that's a pretty interesting one. It's you could interchange it between the second and third pairing between what I'm about to give in Giordano and did I say Liljegren? Oh shoot, no,
Giordano. He's in Liljegren.
Sorry, Giordano. Giordano and Liljegren stay on the third or second. Sorry, I messed that up. Giordano and Liljegren together. You do not want to switch that. I've loved what Giordano's brought to Liljegren. I've seen some elevated play from his part, and I really don't want to break that up. We all know that when we were heading in and Giordano was acquired, we were raving to see the best or one of the best defensive shutdown pairings in all of hockey that once was the Brody and Giordano pairing. We didn't see that at all, and I'm quite thankful that we did, because this one maybe works out just as good. So keep those two, Giordano and Liljegren, and then the other one was Brody and I know Sandin, we didn't say he was healthy. I would have liked to see those two together, but we don't know Sandin's timetable yet. So I'm going to go Sandin and Muzzin. Hall is going to be the odd one out. I'm not a big fan of his game at all. Everyone's saying he's getting better, and I'm going to say there's only one way up from rock bottom. So he had a treacherous beginning of the year, and obviously it's going to get better. But he still is not convinced you anything.
Hold on.
Did I leave out someone?
You're scratching Brody?
No.
No, Brody he has with Muzzin, I believe.
No, did I take out Brody?
Muzzin Sandin.
Why? I should have wrote this down. I'm going off the top of my dome. Brody would never be scratched in my
Sandin's injured right now, so for the time being, Brody and
yes.
Oh, okay.
Let me state it again because I'm confusing myself. Riley, Labushkin, Brody, and I guess throw Muzzin there, and then Giordano and Liljegren. The odd guy out. Sandin is hurt. Hall is not going to be there, and I don't think I'm forgetting anyone else. Those guys, that's my group. And I'm very sorry for all the people listening if I confused you or got you on the edge of your seat. That's sort of the point of the show, but I did not mean or intend to do so. That is my pairing. I think it's safe to say that's a good one that's worked. We've seen it work in the past, and it has a good mix of defensive players versus guys who have a bit more offensive skill. Something you want, at least in the playoffs, when you're not going to get all that firepower from those lines, whichever it is, 1 through 4. You're going to want some defensive help. But it's my defensive pairings. If I'm Sheldon Keefe, that's what I'm putting out in game 1.
Definitely. And I think those definitely have the potential to be good. The one thing I want to add before we move over to a Damo is just talking about that Giordano-Liljegren pairing. Mm-hmm. What a difference a week or maybe a week and a half makes when last week or whatever we were talking about how we really want to see Giordano moved away from Liljegren. We really want to see him playing with TJ Brody. However, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. No. And I have loved what I've seen, as you mentioned, the fact that Giordano, a veteran defenseman playing with a young defenseman, has really elevated the game of Timothy Liljegren and made him a very strong defenseman out there. I don't really know what word I was looking for, but yeah, strong works for me.
Mm-hmm.
He's been unbelievable. I've really liked what he's done. I've liked how he's raised up his game. And maybe I'd even go as far as to make that our second pairing. I definitely agree with you, make that Riley Labushka our starting D pair. However, I've really liked what I've seen from Giordano and Liljegren, and that absolutely has the potential to be a very good pairing in the playoffs. And as much as at some point I do want to try the experiment of seeing what Giordano and Brody can do together, maybe you reserve that for on a power play or something. You try that out, because right now at 5-on-5, Giordano and Liljegren have been unbelievable together, and I don't see any reason to split them up. Now we'll move over to Damo. I don't know if you found the pairings you wrote down earlier, because you did write them down. But yeah, go ahead and tell me which D pair do you think would be the best for the Toronto Maple Leafs?
Okay. So let's do this. They were the exact same as Mario's, except I specifically put in that order, the order that I put. So my pairing, I'll start from number 3, is Muzz and Brody. It's my third pairing. Okay. My second pairing, Riley Labushkin. My first pairing, Giordano Liljegren. And hear me out. The dork stats think Liljegren should win the Calder over Sider.
Dork stats are dork stats for a reason.
You know, I don't actually believe it. I don't actually.
Lord,
I think he should.
Defensively, maybe,
but that's what I'm getting at. Offensively, Sider hasn't beat, but defensively, Sider's a mess, and Liljegren has been probably the Leafs' best defensive defenseman this year. In terms of pure defense,
I don't know about whole year long, but since being added next to Giordano, I think in this recent stretch, there's an argument for it. He's been unbelievable.
Even before though, man, he's been controlling play. Like, he's been really fucking good this season, and we're like not really talking about it. I obviously Giordano is helping him, but like him and maybe I guess Brody's always sound defensively, but I think Liljegren's a little bit. I don't think he probably shouldn't be in Calder conversations, but like defensively, he's been one of the best Leaf defensemen. And I don't care about how old he is. He's playing with Mark Giordano. I think he can do it in the playoffs.
So I believe so as well. He's been unbelievable, and he's playing like the player I expected him to be when we drafted him at 17th overall. I was so high. Sorry, not I was so high that day. I was super high on Liljegren that day.
You would have been what? 2017 draft? You would have been what? 12, 13?
Yeah.
No, I must have been.
End of grade 8.
When I put it against Jared, no.
Yeah.
Okay. What I meant to say is I was very high on Liljegren heading into that draft. I didn't see a way he was going to fall to us at 17, but it ended up happening. We got him, and I was very excited for him. And then the next few years, I'm not going to say I was disappointed in him, but he was playing for the Marlies. And, I mean, he won a Calder Cup championship, whatever, but he wasn't doing things for the team I envisioned him playing for until now. And it took a bit of a wait. It took a while, but ultimately right now he's absolutely playing amazing in the Leafs lineup. And I'm loving what I'm seeing. And lastly, we'll finish it off. Evan, what do you think these Toronto Maple Leafs, who, I mean, you're not a hardcore Leafs fan. You're more of a hockey fan in general.
I'm a diehard
Leafs team. You know the problems on this team. And what do you think D pairs they could assemble to make them finally able to play well enough defensively to move far in the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, I would go that first line just with Riley and Brody, just because, I mean, I know, Adamo, I respect your points. I just think Riley knows that top line of Matthews and Marner very well, and I just think the connection there will be very critical in the playoffs. Next line, I like what you said. I'll go Giordano and Liljegren, and then health permitting, I'll go Muzzin and Sandin, and just I'll scratch Justin Hall because I think he's a traffic cone out there.
Okay, definitely. And I think those would absolutely work. And I just want to give a little bit of a pat on the back to Kyle Dubas. He is, like, you have to look at the decor he started his tenure as GM with.
Yes.
I don't have it on hand in front of me, but you have to think it's names like, sure, we had Morgan Riley back then, but we had Ron Hainsey playing with Riley.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty.
He did such a good job with this decor, and I've absolutely loved what Kyle Dubas has done.
Yeah.
And that's why, I mean, back to the argument, blaming him, don't blame him, whatever. He's assembled the team. We have the potential. We have the skill. it's about time. We're now 12 games away from the playoffs. They got to gear up and they got to show us something new in the playoffs because Dubas has done his part. It's all about how the team shows up. Anyways, talking about the team showing up in the past 5 games, excusing last night's blunder on the second half of the back-to-back, we're going to put it aside for a moment. Before that, the 5-game stretch, we were playing absolutely unbelievable. We went on a 5-game winning streak, but it's not even about the winning streak. It's the teams we were beating and shutting down handedly. These include the Boston Bruins, the Panthers. Last week we beat them. I don't care what happened last night. We also beat the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Winnipeg Jets, who, yes, they aren't having a great season, but they're fighting hard for a playoff spot and had all the reason to win that game, but ultimately we shut them down, beat them 7-3. These wins were highlighted by great performances, of course, by Matthews and Marner. In this stretch, Matthews hit his 50th goal. He's currently at 54, one off from the Leafs' all-time in-season record. But in general, even the depth is stepping up. Mikheyev, Engvall. So what I want to ask you guys is, what has it been? What about the Leafs play has allowed them to get onto this great stretch and has allowed them to really play well? And do you believe that these wins did anything to make you believe the Leafs are capable of going far in the playoffs? Or is more of a loss like last night tell you, oh, they aren't ready? Kind of how do you gauge the praising them based on their wins or the taking away from their praise based on a loss like that? I'll start with Evan. Kind of what are your thoughts on the Leafs going into the playoffs based on this stretch?
Well, yeah, I mean, they definitely played well. I mean, that game against Boston was huge. I definitely thought that, that was a game that they needed to win. I mean, maybe just even a sense of confidence boost because that might be a team that they're going to have to face in a couple of weeks from now. I'll say the Winnipeg game, I don't want to discredit the Leafs here, but, no Kyle Connor for Winnipeg look, I know that it's a game that the Leafs still had to come back in. I give them credit because down 2-0 early is never an easy thing to do. It makes it a little easier when a 40-goal scorer, 40-assist man isn't on the other side to kind of even boost that lead that they had. So, but I'll give them credit. You still scored 5 unanswered, I think it was, 5 or 6 unanswered goals, which is incredible. The Florida game, that first game was huge. Spencer Knight was 3-1-1 in his last 5 road games before that. I think he had like a .930 save percentage. So I definitely thought he was going to show up there, but maybe bright lights in Toronto just weren't it. But I can't the Leafs just played well. I mean, I think since the start of 2022, if you count last night, I think Marner has 68 points in 33 games since the start of the new calendar year. So that's just incredible. Austin Matthews writes the story himself in terms of goal scoring. I hope he gets 60 on home ice. I think that would just be the cherry on top for the season. But I can't say that last night's loss completely dismantled all of that work. I can't. It's just there was too much in front of that to really put the panic button on. But I will say, to your point that you brought up earlier, I've noticed that Mitch Marner doesn't play with that explosiveness. And I know we keep picking on him, but it's just, he's the guy that's getting paid the big bucks and he's not. It's easy to show up when you're winning because you're having fun out there. But when it gets intense, then you've got to start stepping up. And unfortunately, he just hasn't filled those shoes yet, but he's been incredible. The first goal he scored last night is what I hope to see in the playoffs when the game is tight, because that could be a huge difference maker.
100%. And again, the key word with Marner, it's not that he isn't capable, it's that he hasn't shown it to us yet. So I absolutely believe he has the potential, he has the skill. He's the leading point getter in the entire NHL in the calendar year of 2022.
Yeah.
He's been unbelievable this season. And as you mentioned, in games where things are going great, he's been easily one of the most noticeable, most impressive, and most explosive Leafs on the team. But again, it's just an example of last night when Panthers started putting the pressure on. I found he withered up a little bit. So I really want to see if he could work on that. And I hope he finds the confidence to, in a tight game, in a close game, he finds a way to explode moving forward. But in general, I'm going to move on. And actually, you know what? I want to say one more thing. Mr. Davis, you impressed me. I thought when I was writing this question, I thought you were going to be the one that kind of, take away that 5-game winning streak because, they just blew an embarrassing game. But, thinking rationally, that's what you need to do in this industry. No biases. And I will say you impressed me with that answer. Moving forward, we're going to talk to Damo Ramoli. Just what are your thoughts on this overall game and their stretch of games moving forward?
I didn't exactly watch them.
You know what? Fair.
Hold on.
Oh, okay.
I have one thing. Do you think they tried?
Against which team?
I don't know, any of them.
All of
on
them?
defense, I mean. Do you think they tried on defense?
I'd like to think they.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I do.
Oh,
I think
well,
he played very
actually-
well.
You think they scored a lot? Like all of them? Even the forwards? Even the
Pretty
right
much.
winger?
Yeah, I
from
think everyone
Sweden?
played
That
very
one?
well.
Yeah.
I like their game a lot.
Willie Styles.
Oh,
Going right over their head.
Lord.
Yeah,
you
I
did
got-
go over my head there.
I got you.
Um,
Damo, the one
He's doing his
non-league
part
fan.
offensively, Willie. I do think in that Montreal game, especially, he was a problem. But since he's a great player.
Guys.
And I have high expectations for him because he's earned high expectations. William Nylander is an unbelievable player, and I want to see him play well on the other end of the ice. But I can't exactly take away from his game because he's getting the points right now and he's doing well. It was that individual game after the Montreal game. I was very critical of Nylander. He's my favorite player on the team. I don't want to rip on him. I don't want to add to the fucking, oh, he isn't trying shit. It's not that. It's just do something. Don't glide behind a rushing David Savard, you know? That one pissed me off. But no, in general, the whole team, even Nylander, he's been unbelievable offensively. And I've loved what I've seen pretty much from top to bottom of this roster. But in at least the games you watched, what do you think of what you've seen? You know, take a little bit of a break from watching Leafs hockey. Now that you're back, have you been impressed by what you're seeing? Or is there any criticisms that you're starting to notice?
Not really. I came back to a Tampa, thumping in their own barn. Like that was almost like
That's big.
that's
A
really
statement
big.
game.
And that was a real statement game. And you know what? The Leafs played great. Tampa didn't look great either.
No.
Like it didn't look like we were shutting them down much. It kind of just looked like we were the better team, like most of the time.
They pumped him.
Vasilevsky didn't play well. Matthews, whatever, he had an average game.
Yeah.
He's pretty average player.
Never heard of him.
I mean, I can tell you about the results. Like fucking 5 in a row: Florida, Boston, Winnipeg, Philly, Tampa.
Some
and
weird
up
orange team is in the
Florida.
mix, but otherwise, four of the 5 are great teams that we
Yeah,
had to
and-
show up in, and we did.
Yeah,
And the
100%.
rest are nobody.
100%.
Yeah. Okay, and now we'll move on to Mr. Russo over here. You've watched the Leafs as well. You've kind of been balancing the Leafs and the Rams, of course, who are on a playoff run. But in the Leafs games you have caught as well, I'm going to ask you, what are your thoughts of this recent stretch? And based on what you've seen, do you think the Leafs are capable of maybe making some noise this year, finally?
That's the golden question, Jared. That's the golden question. And I said this last year, and I said this in the first period of yesterday's game, and I said this against Tampa when they beat Tampa by that abysmal score. It's so hard to say, has this team changed and flipped the next chapter in their book and they're ready to write a new one? I got to see the playoffs. And I think everyone and all you guys, it's the opt-out answer that you want to hear. I just got to go see what they do in the playoffs. But that's really what it all came down to all season long. These are obviously positive sides. If you're knocking off 4 or 5 playoff caliber teams in your last matchups, that's not something to scoff at. That's a big thing, especially that Tampa Bay game. Like that was the headline one to me that said, okay, this team is legit. They didn't take their foot off the gas. And that's the one thing that I want to see them do. They covered all facets of the ice. Their special teams was nice. Obviously, let's just throw out that Florida game like it didn't happen. Let's just start Tampa Bay. The special teams was amazing all throughout that stretch. The defensive prowess from all of them was very good. The goaltending was there. I didn't have to talk about goaltending nor think about goaltending once over this last stretch, which is very relieving because we've been talking about it for the last 2-3 months. Everything was showing up. The offense was carried heavily, but not too heavily to make you think that this team had no depth. Mikheyev and Engvall stepped up massively, and we're finally seeing Engvall using his size. I mean, the player that we all kind of wanted him to be, and he's worth every penny, man. I'm extremely happy how he's come along. It's all about how he takes those next steps forward to keep the consistency. Mikheyev finally finding that goal scoring touch. I loved him since he came into this team, what he brought immediately. Now we're starting to see it happen after that ugly injury that we all know happened against the Devils with his wrists. So everything's starting to come up Leafs. But can we talk about one thing? And this, I want to spend very, very, very little time on it. It's in regards to the Leafs penalties. And I know I said don't worry about the Florida game, but this is not just the Florida game. This is a lot of games, and they lead the league in this category.
Too many men.
And I want to ask you, Adamo, because you've played the game much longer than me and much more experience, and I just want to understand this. Is a bench minor penalty? Okay, sorry, Evan. Is a bench minor penalty on the coach or the player? I don't know. It's
on the
the coach isn't fucking sending them out. The coach says, "Okay, go out," and it's It's not go out right now. It's implied go out when you don't have too many men on the ice. This is I how is it? I don't get how this is a thing. How is this a thing? What the 13 times? How many games have they played?
They're on game 70.
70?
So like about one in every 4-ish?
They lead the league by a very wide margin.
Yeah, they lead the league in another stat too by a very wide margin.
Yeah, it's not on the coach. It's on the players being lazy and jumpy.
It's also just not being aware. Like, you got to be aware.
Is that a little not concerning, because it's not the make or break in a game, obviously, but
well, it could when you're thinking about it, depending on which team you're playing in the playoffs. It definitely could.
It changed last night. Like it completely changed all the momentum, giving them that power play opportunity right away. Sam Reinhart scored one, and that got them started. So I mean,
it definitely could.
Yeah, I don't put it on the too many men penalty in particular, but taking a stupid penalty. Same thing goes with the puck over a glass, like taking a dumb penalty at a key time where you can't afford one. It allows the team to get life and get back into a game. So absolutely, I'm not going to say that in particular is my number one concern, but it's something to consider, just carelessness and taking stupid penalties.
I've never seen this before.
It's strange, but it's well, it could be a huge issue depending on what type of situation you're in and depending on what type of in terms of the series as well. I mean, it could definitely, if you're playing a team like Tampa, do you really want to send Tampa to the power play when you really don't need to? Like and even Florida to the power play when you really don't need to. Like that's just, it depends, but on situation, but you really don't want to give them that freebie.
Yeah. The one thing I will say though, as much as we're taking some dumb penalties right now, our penalty kill has been unbelievable.
It is.
Like our
kill,
not even just shutdown wise. It's been offensively, like they call it the power kill because it literally has given us life. And Marner's been getting breakaways on it. Engvall's been unreal on the penalty kill. Makeiv's been unreal on the penalty kill. So it's
you guys want a nerd stat? I got a nerd stat.
Yes.
Oh yeah. We need a nerd stat.
The Leafs are controlling 27% of the expected goals when on the penalty kill. For reference, the next best team is 21, and then it's 18, 17, 17.
So it's a wide margin.
It's
like the eye test is telling us what we need to know.
So the nerd stats are giving us like just more clarification on the fact that the Leafs are very dominant.
It's more of how dominant. Like this is not just a regularly dominant penalty kill.
No.
And may I ask, is second place Carolina? I believe they as well have a very strong.
Carolina is number 2.
Dude, their penalty kill on the road is like criminally. I think it's like 95%.
Now we're gonna get into the real MVP on the ice for the Maple Leafs, but let's give credit to the actual MVP on the bench, and that's the power play coach and the special teams coach for this Maple Leafs team. What's his name?
Manny Malhotra?
Nope, he was the old one.
Yeah, he was last year's.
He was last year's
disaster.
He got the boot.
He was still controlling it.
Nope.
Is he not?
He's gone. Who is?
Oh man,
search it up. It's
tough.
Something Burry.
That's a tough blow. You're still on the bench, but you just got gassed of your job.
What's his name? I gotta get this.
Oh yeah, pull that up because I don't have that in front of me unless I could do a quick Google.
Not the time for my thing.
Was it Handy Manny? He can't fix everything.
Oh yeah, well that last year it was a disaster, and if you remember, we started off amazing, but it just fell apart. And that's the one thing all season long. Like this year, the difference is the Leafs power play and penalty kill as well has just been dominant throughout the entire season. It hasn't trailed off, and we're in the final 12 games now. We're in the final stretch. It's still unbelievable. It's a threat every time it gets a shot on the ice.
Wow, Google is really kicking me in the shins here. They aren't giving me a name at all.
God, regardless of the point stands, whoever's running the power play has been unbelievable. And I don't know if it's something that the coaches have said differently this year as opposed to last year, but something they said is clicking in these players' minds because it's working and the players are playing unreal.
Spencer Carberry, we got him.
Never heard that game once in my life, but
never heard of her.
He's doing something.
He's doing stuff right.
In fairness, I think the reason that Manny Malhotra, we heard his name so much is because he was doing something wrong. So maybe it's a good thing that we aren't hearing his name all the time.
Yeah, it's nice. Refreshing.
But in general, before we move on to some of our final topics, we just have to have a talk just gushing. This is the bowing down to Austin Matthews segment. He is unbelievable. I said it earlier. I'll say it again. best Leaf of all time. He is so dominant on every single area of the ice. And I've been seeing a lot of reposts on social media now of back the day that the Leafs flipped that card over, got the first overall pick. I don't think we knew Austin Matthews was going to be good. We did not know he would become a top 3 player in the NHL, arguably the best player in the NHL, and dominant defensively, dominant in goal scoring, but as well now he's making unbelievable passes to Marner. Like, I don't even know what question I have. It's just like,
Let's just talk about him.
Is he the MVP? Is he the best Leaf of all time? I'd check off yes to both of those questions because he has simply been another level this year. Do you guys think, is there any of you who doubt that Matthews should be the Hart Trophy winner this season?
If I don't think there's
one of you says Huberdeau, I'm gonna stab you in the eye through this screen. Like
screen's dead. I love it.
Jonathan, Hooby Dooby Doo.
What do we have? Alan Walsh on this podcast?
Stab in the back.
well, that, but also always praising Jonathan Huberdeau, even though Matthews has been better. Huberdeau has been good. Matthews has been better. And a few weeks ago, I was on the Huberdeau train. I was like, you know what? Not going to be a homer on this one. I'm going to look at actual, just pure points is really what I was looking at. He's this much further ahead in terms of the Florida Panthers scoring. But Florida's the highest scoring team, and he's racking up secondary assists. He's not dominating on the ice quite in the same way that Austin Matthews is doing. And there's nothing really more to ask. It's just he is that good. Matthews is unreal.
Scoring at a goal a game pace over half a season. What are we doing, guys? Are we serious? What the fuck?
No, I got Shesterkin winning the Hart.
Oh yeah, you did.
Hey, unpopular opinion. I don't know if Shesterkin. Freddie Anderson might come and steal it.
If he does that, you know the first person I'm texting. You already know.
Oh, man.
I'm good.
Darcy Kemper's sneaking in there as well. I don't think he's going to win it, but he grows.
No, yeah. I mean,
I think the voters are a little bit smarter than that. They know he's on Colorado. I think they're going to give him the benefit of the doubt there. Sorry, the opposite, I guess, of the benefit of the doubt, where they're going to take away his nomination because you're on Colorado. It would be an embarrassment if you're not in the Vezina competition.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say that the one key thing is that I get maybe this was just because he was in Arizona. He's not injured, but I mean, I guess being in Arizona, I would want to be injured too. Just
shit.
Jared, we gotta ask this question though: is Matthews hitting 70?
It's genuinely possible.
65?
I think he's gonna hit 60. I think
he's hitting 60. I'm not doubting that. As of last game, I don't know what the calculation, because at this point he has 12 games left in the year.
Okay, so
I know last game when he had 13 games left, he was on pace for 69. So if he gets another hat trick or a 4-goal game or something,
can he just end at 69? For the memes.
No, but he's one big game away from genuinely making it so 70 is in the realm.
He needs 16 goals in 12 games.
He's not gonna hit 70, guys.
So I mean, it's definitely.
Wait, for 70?
Yeah, he needs 16 goals in 12 games.
That's it.
It's due. It's not likely.
It's so unlikely.
It's so, but it's also Austin Matthews.
And
65 could happen.
I mean, 65 will happen by the end of the
65 weekend, is likely.
Yeah. No, as of last game, again, he was on pace for 69, so he'll probably, because it's one less game, he's probably on pace for
grow out the pedo stash and end on 69.
Dude, he could, if he hits...
There would be some disgusting
he should be unanimous MVP if he hits 70.
It's no contest, man. There's no contest now. He doesn't even have to hit 70. What else is there?
I mean, I definitely
the fact that he wears this logo. That's the issue.
Or he wears black sometimes. Or sometimes when he's feeling funky, he wears yellow.
Yeah. Just a quick aside before we move on to our next topic. On Twitter, people now that a Leaf is in the front runner for a Hart Trophy, there's actual verified people who are we should change the rules for the Hart. And I'm now that a Leaf is in the front running, you're gonna change the rules.
Yeah. Did you see that Edmonton writer?
Pardon?
Did you see that Edmonton writer who put up a poll saying, who do you think has been the best player this year? And it's fucking
and not Matthews, including
Draisaitl, Barkov, and Gaudreau. Yeah. No,
Gaudreau's fair.
They're trolling. They want mad people clicking and reacting.
Dude, it's the engagement. It's the satire stuff.
Oh yeah.
But it's I hate it. It's just dumb. report the sport. If you're in a position where you're able to write and tell stories, whatever, try to do it in an unbiased way. Like, don't fucking kick off.
It's for the satire.
Oh, we're a rival of Toronto. We don't want to give that guy credit. He's having an MVP-worthy season, guys.
Yeah.
I hate when people do that shit. But anyways, yeah, there's nothing more to say because, again, he's telling the story himself. Matthews is dominant every time he touches the ice. I hope for his sake he could find a way to get it done in the playoffs because that's the one thing that people will detract. Every time you'll see Matthews hits a new record, oh, but when will he do it in the playoffs? If Matthews finds a way to show up this postseason, people will start respect, or they have to start respecting him. If he could find a way to get the Leafs through a first round, but it's also him doing his part and playing unreal, playing like that 11.5634 $1 million player he is, there's no reason to detract from how good he's been. But anyways, I mean, I don't really have a nice segue. I don't have a smooth segue, but he's been unbelievable. And
damn it, you're fired.
To one of our next topics we've talked a lot on the show, and also I've been writing a Dynasty Sports article about who I want the Leafs to play against, who we should be shopping for, who should we be hoping for. But ultimately, the choice isn't really in our hands. It's such a close division, and we really could end up playing anyone. So I want to ask you guys, genuinely, who do you believe we will end up playing in the first round? Again, it's not who you want us to play.
Yeah.
Who do you think we will end up playing? And ultimately, in that series, based on the team you pick, kind of tell me what challenges this team poses and what needs to go right for the Leafs to finally end that drought and make it through a playoff series for the first time since we've been in diapers. Mr. Davis is eager to answer this question.
I'll go.
So hit us.
I mean, I would, based on the standings right now and just given, the road ahead, I would say that the most likely opponent is probably going to be the Tampa Bay Lightning. Boston has a game up on Tampa. They have the same amount of points. I just see Tampa, kind of getting into playoff gear now. I think that Leafs game was definitely a kick in the pants for them to really push on the gas pedal here and see if there's somehow that they can even leapfrog the Leafs in order to get home ice advantage, because we know in the playoffs home ice is everything and it can really segue a series. If it were to be Tampa, right now I would have Tampa in 6. I want to see the Leafs make it out of the first round just because, it's tough and it's all regular season, and then in the playoffs they just can't get over the hump. I did do my homework for the first time on some stats. I just think the way that Tampa plays in the playoffs and the depth that they have, there's not one person that doesn't step up for the Tampa Bay Lightning in the playoffs. I don't know if that has to do with John Cooper. I just don't know if that has to do with the way that they play, the leadership of Stamkos and Hedman and Kucherov, but they got Braden Point, who I think was on a 12 or 13 game goal streak in the playoffs last year when they won the Stanley Cup. He in 67 playoff games has 73 points. Kucherov has 127 in 113 games. Vasilevsky has a career .924 save percentage in 81 playoff games to go along with a 2.24 goals against. They're as dominant in the playoffs as they are in the regular season. And on the flip side, for the Leafs, we keep regurgitating that they don't show up. I'm looking at John Tavares right now, man. 4 goals in 13 playoff games with the Leafs. I know the injury. The injury. Okay, but I'm saying before the injury, he didn't. What was it? Did he get hurt game 1 or something?
He got hurt 10 minutes into game 1.
Oh, okay. So game 1. Okay, so I'll say 4 goals in 12 games then to kind of alleviate the fact that he didn't play.
It's still bad.
It doesn't really help his case. God for that injury sucks, but I'll say the 4 goals in 12 games is not what the Leafs paid 11 million for, or 10 million for. I can't remember, double-digit figures for. I look at Mitch Marner, who I know he is a playmaker at first, but 5 goals in 32 playoff games, you got to get something going, man. But 20 assists, so he is a factor offensively, but man, you're getting paid a lot. You got to at least find some way to get that. I've seen your London Knights highlights. You were gross in the O. Austin Matthews, who we constantly talk about, a goal a game in the regular season, 13 goals in 32 playoff games, isn't really what's going to push them over the hump. And, it's, just averaging a goal every other game. But still, when you're that dominant in the regular season, you're kind of expected to be as dominant in the playoffs, if not more dominant in the playoffs. And, I just look at the success of Tampa Bay, and I don't see how the Leafs beat the Tampa Bay Lightning 4 times before the Lightning lose all those. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't see that working in their favor, which sucks because the East is just so competitive.
Absolutely. And the one thing I'm a little bit, as a Leafs fan, I'm hanging my hat on is the fact that 2 years ago, if we were to have this conversation, no one would be giving this praise to the Tampa Bay Lightning. They had just come off of choking in their first round series, or not even choking, just getting swept. And for years, they had a reputation of being playoff chokers. So the one thing that I'm hanging my hat on is the fact that the Leafs have the talent. I think the answer is in the room. And if all those players step up in the right times, like the Tampa Bay Lightning have learned to do, we have a chance. And I think at our best, we could beat anyone in the league, including the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think we match up against them very well. And at least in the regular season, we play them very well. So I'm not going to say it's impossible for us to beat them, but I do agree with you in the sense that if I'm doing my bracket challenge, how do I confidently pick the Leafs to take down the Tampa Bay Lightning? I simply can't. I mean, the reputation of us getting goalied in the playoffs, well, we got goalied by Elvis Merzlikins and Jonas Korpisalo. Try Andrei Vasilevsky on for size, Like, it would be a nightmare of a series.
Shit. Yeah, shit.
But we're capable, and I genuinely
they're
think
definitely capable.
If each of the players on the Leafs that has to step up does step up, we honestly can beat anyone in the league, and it's not my prediction, but we have what it takes. Now we'll move over, Mario, kind of what are your thoughts as of right now, how things are shaping up, maybe past experience of how teams do in the final stretches. Just overall, what's your prediction of who will end up playing, who will crawl into that most likely third spot, or do you think the Leafs will end up falling? Just overall, what are your predictions for where the Leafs will finish, who they'll end up playing, and what we need to do to beat that opponent?
I do have a question. Where would the Leafs have to finish in order to play Boston? This is not a dream destination.
They would ideally have to finish as no, they couldn't because
if we're second or third,
Boston would
have to leapfrog Tampa.
Right. Gotcha.
But other than that, the only way would be can't.
You're right.
If Washington, so if we finish first in the division and then Washington leapfrogs Boston.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think the more
realistically, if we play the Bruins, it would be because the Leafs are one of the 2 or 3 seed.
That would be the most realistic situation.
Let's see.
It could happen. I mean, it very well.
It's close enough that honestly anything can happen. So that's why I'm asking, genuinely, what do you think will end up shaping up? Because there's 12 games left. Do you think a team will go on a major drought and lose their spot?
Yeah.
And Tampa didn't look good. They looked really bad against the Leafs.
And that's
Tampa's also known for that. I mean, even last year heading into the playoffs, they slowed down a lot. Tampa finishes the 3rd seed in their division.
They're 5-5 in their last 10.
Yeah, they've definitely, I think, and then before that, they lost 6 of their last 8. So they've definitely slowed it down, but you can't go against them when.
No, obviously, but I'm just saying.
No.
I believe both times, before they won the cup, I think there was a stat where they slowed down. They had a horrible end of the season, and then they pick it up in the playoffs and absolutely.
They're just hold my beer. I'll be back.
I think it's done intentional. Just to fuck with
teams.
100%.
It might honestly be a rest up thing. Don't kill yourself, guys. Go glide out there.
Because they're probably just so confident in the fact that they could still dominate in the playoffs. It doesn't matter where they seed because their talent just exceeds any obstacle.
But to answer your question, Jared, the team that they're gonna face, and I just did a bit of more research on the 2 teams that I think are likely in either Boston or Tampa, because I think the Leafs are going to stay in that second spot. I think Florida has a little bit more leeway at top, and I would love to see the Leafs obviously get that big spot, number 1, but it's a little tough and it's looking pretty steep. But I gotta go with Tampa, and I know they're gonna funk 5-4-1 in the last 10, but you look at the strength of the schedule coming up, and I think that has to play a huge factor because Tampa knows how to really lay the hammer down to these poor teams. They're obviously known with the 2 searching for 3 cups that they have, that they never really played down to their opponent. They're a team that's always played up to them. I think they're going to smash those other teams. I think they got the Islanders, who are, let's not kid ourselves, they're doing well, but obviously not going to be making the playoffs. Just
the Islanders
division is shaping out, but not a very scary team at least. Buffalo, they play a couple times. Detroit, they got a couple times. So they got a couple lower teams that they got to face, whereas Boston's playing only, I think, 4 non-playoff teams in their next 12. So if I'm just going to go with the actual things in front of my face here, and obviously Boston is 7-3 on the last 10, so they can continue a decent hot run, but I'm going to stick with Toronto, Tampa, playoff matchup. I think that's how it's going to shape up. And we talked about this extensively last week. We don't get to choose the playoff matchup. It's going to be a hard matchup regardless of who you're facing. So all it lies on is what the Leafs are going to do in that first round matchup. Who's going to step up? Are the big players going to be playing like big players? Is the defense going to be there? Goaltending is going to be strong. Those are answers that we just got to get answered. Those are the questions that got to get answered by game 1 or game 2 or something like that, as early as you possibly can to stick with these teams. But for the reasons Evan mentioned, he said most of it and covered most of the yards, is that Tampa's a scary team. You know what you're going to get from them. They don't take their foot off the gas ever, and they know how to play a playoff style hockey. So the Leafs are just going to have to combat that. They're going to have to match that, and to win it, they're going to have to take it just another notch further and knock out these back-to-back Stanley Cup champs. And I think they're more than capable of doing it. We mentioned Jared, and you're going to see it on your article. On paper, they are definitely stacked up to get it done. It's all about what they bring to the table. That's the big one that has to be answered, and I just can't wait to see what happens, because it's a big playoff for the Leafs, and every single year it's an even bigger playoff for the Maple Leafs. We'll see what happens this year.
Absolutely. And I mean, the one hope when we're playing the Tampa Bay Lightning, maybe they get confused. You know, they literally copied our jerseys. So that's the one we'll hang our hat on. You know, maybe they'll be a little confused out there, not sure who to pass the puck to back in Norway.
Jeez,
I mean, those are the things we're kind of hanging on to. And
we're already smack talking.
But anyways, now we'll move over to Damo before we get to our final question of the show. Kind of who do you see us playing, and do you think we have a shot? You kind of keep it real on this show. You keep it maybe a little negative sometimes, but very fairly negative. So what do you think is going to happen if we play whichever of the teams you believe will end up matching up against?
I think we're going to play Tampa.
3-3.
Anonymous.
That's just how it works, man. There's no way Tampa lets themselves go into the wild card. Like, fuck, they might even leapfrog us. Who knows? We have a couple of bad teams on the schedule, which, you know, because Leafs is trouble. Man, I pick Toronto every year in my bracket. Like in my heart, I don't want to put it. I don't want to put this into the universe, but I'll just say I think the Tampa Bay watch this. I think the Tampa Bay Lightning could lose to the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm not saying the Leafs can win. I'm saying the Lightning can lose. Mm-hmm. Okay, and it's me pulling my reverse. You know. I'm all in reverse.
I thought it was cautious last night doing the anti-jinx text, but apparently it didn't work. For reference, what I said was, if the Leafs hold on to this, and I wrote in brackets, I'm not going to be the one to say the game's over. But, I mean,
that age, like whatever. Fine wine.
Moving on, yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to anti-jinx here. I don't know. I think the Leafs. If Campbell plays like how he has been.
That game against Tampa was
he was really fucking good.
He was really good.
Like, same against the Flyers, like in his first game since coming back from injury. Obviously, it's the Flyers. It's not the same as Tampa, but just talking about the goalie performance, I thought he did really well, and like he looks confident, and that's what Jack Campbell, especially you notice his body language and his voice in interviews and stuff. When he's down on himself, it shows in his performance that he's not playing. But when he's
just not
sounding and talking confidence, yes, it's not a good thing with a goalie, but when he's confident, and he has been lately, I mean, he's seen his play. He's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, then it's like, I know it's like a what if, we always play out scenarios. What if it goes bad in the first 2 games? Like, it's just not
the past 5 years have shown you what'll happen.
No, but it's not only just like the past 5 years. I'm just looking at Campbell's body language. Like, as a goalie, your mental like strength needs to be so much higher than even the players, that like it needs to be on another level, because obviously you're not going to have a shutout every night. It just doesn't happen. Like the greatest goalies in our game have 8 out of a possible 70 starts, so it's rare. But at the same time, you can noticeably see that like his demeanor is down, and I think that's just why the Leafs, like, they start to lose confidence, and then we see months where they're 8-5-1, but like they really should have been like 10-3, or you know what I mean, like 10-4. Like, and points matter so much. But I'm just saying, like, I hope that it doesn't get to that point.
Yeah, and completely fair. I agree with that point. In general, I'll just say, I mean, to be the one kind of different person on this team, I think as much as right now how it's shaping up, we would play the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa is known for at the final stretch of seasons, they tend to cool off a little bit. And because it's so close with them in Boston, I honestly could see Boston leapfrogging them. And that would give, I mean, good luck to Panthers fans, because that would probably give us another matchup between the Tampa Bay Lightning and Florida Panthers.
I would love that.
Or potentially a Tampa Bay versus Carolina, which for my top prediction, Carolina, that would be tough. That's a matchup.
The Leafs can still play them, eh?
Oh yeah, like technically anything's possible.
Yeah.
But anyways, I mean, I think we may end up playing the Boston Bruins, which you know the story with them. We've played them enough times. It's physicality, and it's how we kind of keep our composure when players like that, or Brad Marchand, whatever, kind of get under our grill. I hope Michael Bunting steps up and kind of plays the pest role well there. He's done it all well in the regular season. Hopefully he can do it in the playoffs, piss off them, get them off their game, and I think we're capable of beating the Bruins. But again, the physicality of their team, we know like that speaks for itself, and it would be a nightmare matchup for us. So with that being said, we're going to transition to our final topic of the show. Just a simple, quick answer, scale of 1 to 10 with 12 games remaining in the season. I want you to rate how has our regular season been so far, and as well, what is your confidence level heading into the playoffs for the Toronto Maple Leafs? I'm not going to put anyone on the spot. You tell me who has an answer ready for me. Think about it for a second.
Nope.
But try to think of based on, you're trying to balance both regular season confidence as well as heading into the playoffs. What is your confidence level? If you really want, you could do it into 2 rankings. But what I envisioned is maybe just an overall number that speaks for how good we've been, but as well, do you think it's enough for us to go far?
Yeah. Okay.
Can I go?
Yeah, if you have an answer ready for me, absolutely.
I'm going to go 7.893.
He's going down to like the bone.
I think only Mario got
justify
that one.
it quickly. Justify it a little bit. Kind of, what's your reason for that overall ranking?
Oh, they've been really, really good, and the only reason it's not a 9 or 10 is because 1, the blown leads, and 2, they wear this big old. They wear a fucking leaf on their jersey. Like, what are they doing? Why aren't we have like a cheetah or some shit? Like, like I hate to not provide analysis because that's not who I am, but like they've done, what haven't they proven? They can score goals, they can defend, their goalies can play goalie. Maybe that's another
when they want to
iffy,
or when they're
it's
healthy,
a little,
because that's been an issue.
Yeah, it's a big issue. That's it's certainly a thing. Their power play is the best. Their penalty kill is one of, if not the best. Like, this rating should be higher, but it's only not higher because of the blown leads and they're the Leafs.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that I'm probably finding myself in a similar area, because if you're talking about, like, let's say on an assignment, you're weighting different things, the weighting of our regular season performance, sure, that's the higher mark. But what you have to weight higher is the fact that this playoff history has been a huge problem for us, and balancing them out. Yes, maybe our regular season has been a 9 or 9.5, but our playoff confidence, just because we wear that thing on our jersey, it isn't sky high. And overall, I'll ask Evan, kind of what is your overall analysis with how the Leafs, I mean, it's your first season maybe focusing the Leafs super heavily, living in the hockey mecca of the world, Toronto. What is your analysis of our season and confidence heading into the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really paid attention to the Leafs as much as I have now. I mean, like last year with Matthews, incredible. But, this season, I won't go down to the decimal point as Damo did, but I'll give it, maybe I might have to. I'll give it a 7.5, just because I don't like, just the fact that the unsustainable leads, but at least like you're coming back. But it's just the fact that it gets to that point definitely lowers it from an 8 or a 9 that I would have given them. And then going into the playoffs, just based on the matchups that they might have to have, with that being either Tampa or Boston, I give them a 6 in that, just given the leadership and experience that's on the other side in terms of the opponents, with Bergeron, Stamkos, Marchand, Hedman, Kucherov, Pasta. I know the goalies for Boston, they're rookies and they haven't experienced playoff level hockey, but I just think with a team in front, they wouldn't really need to make that huge save consistently. But I'm just going to give them a 6 for now, just also because we haven't really seen the Leafs step up either.
Yeah, absolutely. And a completely fair and well-justified answer. And lastly, we'll close it off with the host, the Nick Fury of our crew, Mario Russo. What is your answer?
I love the praise, and I'm going to go along with what you guys are saying as well. You guys are around 7, 7.5. I'm going to stick it around 7, just because Damo said it perfectly. We've seen them cover all the bases this year, something that they were like iffy, wishy-washy last year. We've seen it all throughout this season. They can score at a ridiculous pace. Their players and their best players at that can score at a ridiculous pace. We've seen the depth come up, especially recently. And now I'm kind of convinced that this depth can actually pull their weight in a playoff series when called upon, even when not called upon. And the defense has been playing properly structured defense for the most part. Obviously, the front end, that's always been a totally different story, but for the most part, big improvements and big strides have been made. There's a reason why we're talking about them today, and the Kyle Dubas's journey from what he once had to what he once has now. It's a completely different switch, and it's just terrific decor that they have that is, I think, capable of shutting down a big time opponent in a playoff series like Tampa or like Florida. I think they have capabilities of doing that. And the goaltending, for the most part of the year, I think has been their biggest weakness. It's been really, really on and off. Mrazek was a terrible signing, to say the least, and an absolute waste of a spot on the roster. He's done literally nothing to aid and help our team succeed. So very big inconsistencies from there. We saw a couple other goalies this year, including Shalgren, which is really nice. So you've seen a lot of things from this Maple Leafs team, and I'm very impressed. I'm going to give them a 7 out of 10, just because they're still missing those leads that they still blow. And obviously the one to Florida, yes, you're playing to their strengths, but the ones to the Montreal Canadiens, the ones to those Buffalo Sabres, all those other teams, I don't know if they've blown leads exactly to them, but those type of games cannot happen, especially if you're a contending team. I'm not seeing it like those teams like Tampa and Florida and those Colorado's blowing leads like that. It's simply just the Maple Leaf on their chest allowing them to do so. In regards to the playoffs, Jared, again, I just have to see. They have all the pieces. The biggest problem for them all throughout the last couple of years is that they have the tools. They just don't have the toolbox to put it in. And if they can put it in the toolbox the correct way, this team has the capabilities of going the distance. And we've never seen this before. We've never seen what happens when they win a round and what the momentum they get after that. That's what I want to see the most. That's the question that I probably in the world, there's people want to know the meaning of life. I want to know what happens with the Leafs after they win a series and what they can do, because maybe they see some hardware in their distant future. We don't know. And the thing about being us unable to know is that we all tune in to go watch every single year. And I think that's the most exciting part about it. Playoffs are just around the corner. I can't wait to see what this team does for the better or for the worse.
Oh, if it's for the worse, I'm booking that flight back to Toronto. You already know what's going on.
Well, I don't know. You said it perfectly. I mean, I can speak for myself. I can't speak for you guys, but I'm all in no matter what happens. Maybe my predictions aren't as high as been on the Leafs in past years, but the way they're playing, truly anything is possible. And who knows, 2 months from now, we could be talking while coming back from a parade, you know? You never truly know. And the Leafs have the pieces. As you mentioned, though, it's all about how we put it together. And with that being said, that wraps it up for this edition of the Leafs Line podcast. Of course, brought to you by Dynasty Sports. Check out our TikTok, check out our Instagram, check out some banger articles we've been writing. And overall, thank you for tuning in and watching. I'm Jared with Mario, Evan, and Adamo. This is this episode of the Leafs Line podcast.